And my name is Ivy Williams, and I am the head facilitator of the Two Spirits Initiation. I have been a certified yoga instructor and for the past 5 years, and a relationship coach for the past 2 years under Psalms. I'm also a fraud analyst, and I think that's important to note, which I'll bring up a little bit later in my story, because as a fraud analyst, you have to be able to detect lies, and when people are being when someone is a victim and someone is a villain. And that is really kind of where my story begins in Psalms. But before I dive into that, I want to talk a little bit about my passion and how I got started serving people and supporting people in releasing any and every block to unconditional love and radical acceptance. When I was about, gosh, maybe 10 years old, I was in church one day and my dad was a pastor. I was sitting on the front row and I felt what many people call the call. I felt, I heard a voice and it was very clear to me, and it was audible. And we were sitting there, in worship, raising our hands, shouting, Holy Ghost, all of that stuff. If you grew up in the church, you know what happens on a Sunday morning. And I was just sitting there, and I knew and heard that I was supposed to be someone important and have an impact on the people around me. At the time, I was going through a hard time in my family because my mother was sick and she was terminally ill. And so about 4 years later, when I was 14, she passed away. And at that time, I had started doing a lot of research on Christianity, the Bible, the origins of Christianity, and I was dissatisfied with the answers. I brought them to my parents. They were both educators, so they tolerated my questions, but simply put, they just said, we're Christians in this family. We follow the Bible here. Do what we tell you to do. And so my relationship with God, who, I later came to discover was myself, was a little bit tumultuous. It felt forced. I felt, although again, I felt connected to spirit, I felt connected to my destiny and to my purpose, I still felt bound. I still felt like I was living in a box, like I couldn't be free. As you see here in this picture, I'm about 18 years old. This is about, I don't even remember how many years ago, but about 18 years old. And I guess 2008, and I was my freshman year in college. And I, again, at that time, started re-examining my ideas around spirituality, what it meant to be a woman, what it meant to be free, what it meant to be woke, what it meant to be, an empowered being on the planet. Because at that time, I started exploring African spirituality. My parents pastored a Nigerian church, so I was exposed to all sorts of ideas beyond Christianity. But it wasn't really until that I came into contact with Psalms that I found a space where I could not just explore my spirituality, my sexuality, my of my career, like Tamika was talking about, all aspects of myself were being addressed. In Christianity, I felt like there was no place for my voice to be heard, because what I knew, who I knew God to be, was in the Christian church was very small, but it expanded as I started to learn more and more about myself as a woman, about my experiences in college, through dating, through relating to others, through cultivating friendships. Again, questions still came up around who is God? Who is God? And suddenly with Psalms, the answer again was me. The idea of I create my life um, wasn't new to me, because in the Bible, in the book of Psalms, funny enough, Rakim and I have spoken about this before, and he might be able to remind me which chapter and verse, but it says, know ye not that ye are gods? And again, since I was 10 years old, I've been bringing that same question to my parents. And I was looking at our lives as Christians and my father being a pastor and a leader in his community, and this example that I was supposed to live up to. But behind the scenes, we were acting and playing out a lot of ancestral patterns. Tamika talked about that earlier, how that can show up in the body. And for me, those ancestral patterns, although again, Christianity was supposed to be the answer to those ancestral, to the generational curses, I still saw my father struggling with intimacy with my mother. I still saw my sisters struggling to find partners that not just supported, you know, them within the home, but supported their expansion outside of the home. I still saw my friends, again, compassionate and loving and caring, but still feeling dissatisfied. Once I left the church and again connected with Psalms in about 2010, it was Juju Mama back then. I had to make a decision. Do I want to leave behind everything that I know, all of the training? You know, when I say I'm a former minister in training, meaning waking up on Fridays and Saturday mornings, going to the Bible school, studying Hebrew, studying Greek. You know, I was committed to this path. But when I was faced, when again, I had to sit and look in the mirror and ask myself, who is God? The answer kept coming back to me when I looked in the Bible. The answer kept coming back to me when I studied religion in college, when I looked in every single religious book, the answer kept coming back to me. And so, as highly independent and free thinking that I was again, like my parents, still struggling with intimacy, still struggling with finding deep connection, sustaining relationships. But around 2016, I started back just kind of dibbling and dabbling in Psalms again. It was Progressive Love Academy around that time. And then I rejoined the Butterflies around 2019. And I picked up those books like Change Your Man. And I started going through the Blue Butterfly Library, and I started, you know, having conversations with some of the coaches and the facilitators. And I really started getting down to the root of who I was and why these patterns were playing out. Why is it that I come from a people that are clearly deeply connected to the spiritual world and have power and impact and influence in their communities, but they're left unfulfilled? I'm supposed to be a leader. People are looking at me saying, hey, you have the answers, but I don't. And when I came to Psalms, I found out that the answers lied within. And if you notice, if you've been here, if you were here last week, and you're here today, you notice that is the recurring theme. The answer lies within. It doesn't matter, you know, for me, it didn't matter that, again, I had been trained to think a certain way, conditioned to believe that the answer had to come from a particular source. And as I began to apply these tenets, apply the idea, just accept, just not even believing it, but just holding space for the idea that I could create my best possible life. When I talk about the patterns, I want to go back to the patterns, ancestral patterns that I was healing, that I've been healing through the work I've done in Psalms. My parents are pastors. My grandparents were ministers in the church, deacons, deaconess. My great-grandparents were pastors and preachers. But again, the recurring theme of trauma, molestation, husbands being unfaithful to their wives, not being able to create deep intimacy again. These are things that I couldn't discuss with my dad. These are things I couldn't discuss with my mom. These are things that I couldn't discuss with anyone. And even when I went through therapy, because again, parents educated, okay, well, we're going to put her in therapy. The therapist didn't have the answers. They gave me some. They gave me coping mechanisms and tools to appear and to mask as though I was happy. But it wasn't until I stepped into this space, again, I would isolate myself. I was afraid of connection. I was afraid to learn and grow with others. It wasn't until I chose to learn and grow with others, with those who were of like mind, who could look at me and say, yes, you are God. And yes, you decide your fate. And yes, you decide how fast you grow. And yes, you decide how fast you release traumas and old patterns and wounds. In Psalms, I was given permission to grow authentically. I was given permission to experience intimacy with self on a daily basis. And in particular, I was able to embrace my legacy, which again looks very different. I talked to my dad today, about, oh, I'm getting ready to do a webinar. He's in Nigeria with his, Christian friends, doing his Christian friend things. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm getting ready to sit and talk to people about, the shift, my spiritual shifts. And he's just like, oh, Ivy, okay, that's so interesting. We'll talk about it later. A little dismissive, but I know he knows I'm living out my purpose and my passion. I'm living out the destiny and the purpose that I was given on this planet, because I have the tools. I have the support. Finally, as of last year, I became a Psalm certified feminine power coach. And that journey for me was an initiation in and of itself. Someone mentioned initiation earlier. For me, the certifications has gave me an opportunity to create a container for myself. And again, help bring some accountability to who I am as a gatekeeper on this planet, as someone who receives and hears messages and downloads from the divine, from the all, from source, and it knows how to share that message with the world in a way that is impactful. I have a responsibility, and being in Psalms gave me the opportunity to learn and to grow with others and to know what accountability looks like, know what it's like for someone to say, hey, this isn't that might not be beneficial. And it's different, someone saying, hey, ooh, that's wrong, you shouldn't do that, versus, will that benefit you? Will you grow from this? And I know I'm living if I'm growing. I can't remember who said that last week, but I know I'm living if I'm growing. I wanted to share, before I press play on this video, I wanted to share a quick clip of where I was a year ago around this time. And I'm sharing this video because most importantly, more than anything, although yes, I make more money now that I'm in Psalms. I mean, I'm a happy person. Even on the roughest of days, I've experienced over the last year, grief, my stepmother passing. So, at this point, I've lost two parents, two mothers, dealing with these, again, wounds that were resurfacing from 15 years ago when my birth mother passed. And I could not have handled any of these challenges without the support of this community and these initiations. I could not be living my best possible life. When I tell you, in the middle of the pandemic, my husband, through the work that I was doing in the Blue Butterfly Room, so I got to shout out Karina, who is here today, through the work that I was doing there and through the tools that I learned throughout the last 2 or 3 years of being in Psalms, I was able to shift the situation at my husband's job where they were paying for us to live on the beach for a year in the middle of a pandemic. And when I tell you we were broke, we didn't have money, but our needs were completely fulfilled. In a time when everybody should have been in famine, I was feasting. And even though I was, again, experiencing challenges, I had so many family members pass last year, life wasn't perfect, but my ability to take these tools and use them in a practical way and take just one goal, one desire, and say, this is what I want to create, and focusing all of my energy towards that, I'm now living my best possible life. I know this video is again 11 seconds from South Carolina when I was living on the beach, and I'm now in Florida, back home, a few hours away from my family, an hour away from the beach. Again, living a very beautiful life, but because I'm taking these tools. But again, I'll just show you all because this was literally a year ago today. And what's so amazing about this particular moment is that this was a day that my husband and I were, it was right after my stepmother passed. My husband and I were having we're having just conversation after conversation about the state of the world, where we were. He was going through a deep, dark depression. And I went out to the water, and I just remember calling out to all of my ancestors, all, just really communing with the ocean, and in asking for what I desired. And for me to be sitting here a year, almost to the exact time, saying every single worry that I have had over the last year has been met, has been solved. It's not there anymore because I'm using these tools. And I'm not going to keep you guys much longer because you all already know essentially what my story and what we do here at Psalms. But from the two spirits perspective, one of the ways that I have used the tools over the last few years is to, like I mentioned, break out of the molds, the mental boxes that I've had around who I am and how I'm supposed to show up, what I believe self-actualization and self-awareness is. When we talk about being two-spirited, we're talking about being able to access the masculine and feminine energies. We're talking about being able to manifest using the sun and the moon. And not just, okay, I'm manifesting one thing there, two things here. It's consistent, daily magic. And when I say magic, I'm not talking about something abstract that you just, can't comprehend or conceive. We're talking about how do you use the power, harness the power of the sun and the moon, and converge those energies to create a vortex of manifestation in your life. What would your life look like if you became a master manifester? We're increasing our potential to heal our inner child. As I mentioned, there's a lot of, I had so many wounds around my childhood, so many subconscious patterns of insecurity and instability. We're releasing those through this program. Growing our confidence. A year ago, or not even a year ago, let's say even 2-3 years ago, I would not have felt comfortable just hopping on a video to talk about what I'm creating and how I am supporting myself and others through manifestation. We're talking about becoming more suitable and desirable for partnership. My marriage, again, these tools, learning how to get in tune with my partner, learning how to see myself through my partner. We do this through weekly lectures and monthly master classes. We also do weekly meditation classes and group coaching. We offer community support and one-on-one coaching as well with our Psalm certified coaches. This course, as all the courses, the year-long courses at Psalms, is only $97 a month. And we're talking about, again, evolving into the greatest version of yourself, the one that you get to see on a daily basis. You can look back year after year after year, knowing that you're only experiencing greatness and creating greatness. If you want to join, the first thing you need to do, if you're not a Psalms member, although many of us are, you want to become a Psalms annual member for $39 a year. And with that, as Tamika mentioned, you're going to receive live lectures, masterclasses, and more. And then you reach out to a guidance counselor. Someone will most likely reach out to you too, but you want to reach out to a guidance counselor if you haven't heard someone, or me if you would like to go ahead and get started and enroll in the initiation. And then you want to sign up for the private circle group This private study group is where the magic happens, is where we're doing our daily posts and where you see us as facilitators really dig into the meat of how we are creating and manifesting our magic on a daily basis. With the Two Spirits program, we're taking these two goals using the sun manifestation system and the moon manifestation system, and we are focusing on them on a daily basis, so that at the end of that 365 days, you can look back and say, wow, and just like Tamika and I did, look back and say, this is who I was before and this is who I was after. Whenever you're ready to enroll, you can reach out to me at bit.ly/Iam2spirit, or you can reach out to us at Psalm Circle if you're an annual member, or I Want My Ivy on Instagram.